have everybody's attention, we're about 2 minutes away from wanting to get started, so if everybody will head back to their seats, would appreciate it. If everybody could get to their seats, please, we're ready to get started. If we could get everybody to get to their seats, please, so we can get started, so everybody can hear the candidates. Thank you. It's so hard to talk up here if everybody's talking back there, and we want to make sure we can hear our candidates and their Commerce. Sonia German with the Recreation Center. Sonia, if you'll raise your hand back there. She has the cards. If you're interested in asking any questions of the candidates, please just sort of wave your hand at Sonia. She'll bring you through them and try and ask it. Has 3 minutes to present their own statements, and then each candidate will have a minute to answer each question from the media panel, and then we'll have 2 minutes of close for each of the candidates to wrap up what they have to say. And we did a drawing before we started the forum, and Tom Ashby drew number 1, so he will have our first opening and first closing statement. So Tom, come to the podium and do your 3-minute open, please. Well, not closing yet, but.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank Bob Kelsheimer, Centralia Chamber of Commerce, for hosting this event. Also, Sonia German, who would not only serve a dual role, she's president of the chamber, as well as working with the Recreation Committee here in Centralia. One of the 2 of many, many partnerships that we have within our community. We have a shareholding and stakeholders with, and part of the success that we've seen in the last 4 years because of partnerships like this. My campaign manager, Mary Ashby. She's very happily living over here in 230 South Maple, has lived there 55 years. Very happy to have her Kaskaskia College and still work for the city of Centralia, and then go into some type of government work helping. First, township trustee for 14 years. Second, county board as your finance chairman for Marion County. 8 years ago, was elected councilman, one of the proudest achievements I thought to have, until I was surpassed by being able to become your mayor for the last 4 years. I'm honored to be at this position it is right now. You know, one of the things that you have about the misconceptions, what the power of a mayor or city councilor, I'm going to give you the 3 most simplest explanation of it. We have three duties as a councilman, as a mayor. Number one, fiscal. We set the budget. We set the budget with the assistance of the city manager. We are a city manager form of government, so we work with the city manager to have an attainable budget. We took office 4 years ago. We had problems. We had problems. I'll talk about those in a moment. But I think it's important to note, we address, it seems to be the one issue I hear repeatedly, this slate, cronyism. Let's talk about it. Let's not call it a slate, let's call it a team. Because 4 years ago, I seen problems as serving on the city council. I thought they needed to be addressed. Were they true problems? Yes. So I went to 4 people I knew within the community. David Sauer, the judge, right here in Marion County, has great knowledge in law, mostly in housing as well, one of his greatest attributes and strengths that he has. Next, Bill Smith, local store owner, but not to mention the 25 years of infrastructure work he had with general contractors. Critical piece to anything we do within the city of Centralia. We also had Doug Bretzinger, 25 years as an investigator for the state police. We were able to put him into a position as the chief so we can actually make a better position with him. I think it's critical that we know that. And finally, policy is one thing that you also direct towards. Thirdly, that you basically have to be able to hire an effective city manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom Ashby. Dan Stover now has his opening 3-minute statement. Dan.
Good evening. I'm Dan Stover. I'm candidate for mayor here in the city of Centralia. I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about myself because I think most everybody in town knows me. I've been here all my life. 2 terms on the city council, 1 term on the county board, 32 years of service credit, teaching college, political science, criminal justice. That's enough. People know me. I think I'm well qualified by both experience and by education and by track record. I do think that it's important that we not have a slate, that the members of the council are independent thinkers that get along with one another, but often agree to disagree, because if they're all thinking the same way and driven by one source, it's just not right. In about the 1830s, Alexis de Tocqueville came to the United States from France and wrote a landmark book called Democracy in America. A statement is attributable to de Tocqueville that is, in democracy, people get the governments they deserve. That's both a blessing and a curse. Because if you've got a great government, then you deserved it. You hired him. If you've got one that's not so great, it's also your fault as well. It's up to you to pick the best government that you can. I am going to be a little bit disjointed tonight because I have so many topics that I want to get through. I want to go as fast as I can. I only have 3 minutes. So, yes, yesterday I revealed to the media sources in our area that the city manager has been given a raise in excess of what the law allows, 12.5% 2 years ago, 18.4% last year, and we have been assessed a fine, a penalty of $29,110. His current salary is $117,000 and change. I think that's just wrong, and it's an attempt to create a golden parachute, a retirement package that the legislature deliberately tried to stop from happening when they did that nonsense with school. The kicker in all that is that $29,000 is going to go in his retirement account, and you pay for it. We've spent approximately $400,000 in outside legal fees in the past 4 years, most of it to a firm called Hush Blackwell, in addition to the city attorney. I think that's an extraordinary amount. Again, I'm apologizing for being disjointed, but there are little things that point to the integrity of a candidate or a team, such as at the bottom of every one of my signs, you'll see a disclaimer that says it's paid for by Stover for mayor. I want you to look at all of the signs that are not mine that are up in this election, and you'll find that nowhere do they indicate, as is required by law, who paid for those signs. I do my best to follow the law by the book. I think that this city council has engaged in a lack of respect for the city workers, and they need more support They need more of what this city can offer, and they need to do a good job for us as well. I'm going to come back to these topics. I didn't get anywhere near the end of the list. I'll cover them before the evening is over, I promise. I hope I can get to many of them by your questions. Thanks for starting things off well tonight.
Thank you, Dan Sauer, for your opening remarks. We'll now move to the question and answer portion of tonight's program. And each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the questions that are posed by the media panel. And we'll start with Tom Ashby with the first answer to the first question that will come from Jason Sylvie of the Centralia Sentinel. Jason.
With proposed loss of state revenue recently proposed by the governor, what steps would you take as mayor to offset that revenue loss?
Good question, Jason. Basically, what you try to do is, from the very beginning, we set a fiscal cycle or process where we try to put some money in reserves. We do know that they're going to continue to have unfunded mandates done by the state of Illinois. That's the reason why we're in these situations that we are. And I think it's important to note that this has been stayed for a year, presently under the present format, but we have to look for other alternative sources of revenue. That's one of the reasons why we look for the medical marijuana plant. That could have brought in over $1 million of revenue to the city of Centralia. Dire need of that. Where this was almost going to have an impact of $640,000, this would more make up for that. So I think it's important to note that we try to do more with less. I think we've exhibited that through the hires and fires that we've done within our city, and we've actually saved money, almost $500,000 in salaries alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom Ashby. Answer to the question, Dan Sauer.
One of the things that we can start doing is stop passing token tax reductions that really don't cause that much of a benefit to the community. I'm reminded of the ancient Roman formula for running their government. It was given circus and cake, circus and cake. You know, the $10 that you might have saved on a token tax reduction is sorely needed by the police department, fire department, public works department. I'll tell you what they get from government, but you got to pay. That's not. Development things that can offset any revenues caused by our new government. The state's in a heck of a shape. I know they are. I know they're going to have to do something. Hopefully, our legislature, combined with our executive branch, can come up with a plan that won't be so crippling to communities like Centralia. They have hurt us enough already. The Murray Center thing is unforgivable. Any other state cuts that come our way also are not tolerable.
Thank you very much, Dan Sauer, for your answer to the question. And Dan, if you want to stay up at the podium, you'll have the first answer to the next question that comes from Rhonda Hatcher of the Shoppers Weekly. Rhonda.
What is your top 2 goals in the next 4 years if elected mayor for the city of Centralia?
Honesty, number 1. To give everybody a fair shake, to be forthright, open, and above board. I think that's really important. It goes to the heart of what city government should be. For you. I can't tell you how we're going to bring all these new jobs to Centralia, but then I stopped looking for the magic bullet, and there's some essential things that you have to do. One of the things that we can do is go back to the old system of having the Chamber of Commerce provide us with the ambassadors that used to welcome people to our community, show them around the town, and encourage them to invest here. I think they did a great job in the past, and I believe that we can recruit them to do a good job in the future. Now, Bob gets mad at me because I sometimes talk about image in ways that he doesn't like. I think that Centralia suit clothes that was just perfect, and his tailor made him some that were invisible. And when he rode through town with no clothes on, only one person had the courage to speak up and say, "Dude, you're naked." That's me. I am not going to say we've got a great image when we don't. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan Sauer. Next answer to the question comes from Tom Ashby. Tom.
Second question again, please. I'll make sure I answer correctly.
What are your goals over the next 4 years if elected mayor of Centralia?
Well, one of the first and foremost goals would be to continue with the fiscal solvency we have within the city of Centralia. It's important to note that we've been able to do this more with less. And we do have labor negotiations coming up. 5 different labor negotiations. Are they hard? Yes. But we have a limited amount of money that we can spend in this community itself. So I think it's important to note. The other thing would be a hotel. It's been brought to the attention with the SWOT analysis, with the Tourism Commission, the Industrial Commission, all these other districts, downtown, the Chamber of Commerce, all have endorsed a new hotel. How can you have people say come to Centralia if they don't have a place to stay? We got to have some kind of attractive thing for the city of Centralia to have for people to stay. I have family come in. They have to stay in Mount Vernon, Salem, or they're rising my house. So I'm just saying this could be good for us. And finally would be the Route 51 expansion. That is going to be the future of Centralia. We have to continue to pursue this for all. Thank you.
First answer to the next question, and I'll pose that question to you. And I want to give you a chance to respond to what Ed Stover said in his opening remarks concerning what he said was an illegal raise the past 2 years to the city manager. Your comment on that, and if the city, indeed, in your opinion, is going to face a penalty as a result.
Well, first of all and foremost, let me establish one thing. There is no law broken. Absolutely not. This has been clarified by legal counsel, everyone else. We gave a raise, one raise in 4 years. One raise in 4 years to our city manager. It exceeded 12%. We could have went 3%, 3%, 3%, something else. But he was worthy of the task that he's done. He brought us out of financial hole. He put us in the aspect that we could actually work with the industries we have here in town, but more importantly, the complete projects we have. Nowhere is there a violation. It's a potential liability, and we qualify for the exemption, just as we have for the other 3 members we have within the city of Centralia. And 2 other employees, Richard Chapman, Don Weimer. So this is not anything but a perception of deceit, and I strictly do not like that.
Thank you very much, Tom Ashby, for your remarks. Now, response from Ed Stover.
Question? There was that.
The question that I asked was basically I wanted Tom to explain his response to.
I got it. Okay. I filed Freedom of Information Act papers with the state of Illinois. This is the report that I got back from them. This is Mayor Ashby's signature on it. There's the penalty of $29,000 and change. I didn't create this. Give raises in excess of 6%. The raises for years running were 12.5%, 18.6% the next year. And I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Now, he tells us it's justified, but you don't even get to file your appeal until the day that Mr. Ramey retires. At that point, they have 30 days to appeal. And he tells us in the media this morning that the explanation for this is that the city manager is also really the fire chief. And he's got those extra duties. He's also doing the city engineer's work. Come on, people, the state's not going to buy that. I don't buy it, and I don't think you buy it either.
Thank you, Dan Stover. Dan, go ahead and stay at the podium for the first answer to the next question. And it comes from Jason Sylvie of the Centralia Center.
What are the most important infrastructure projects the city needs to complete over the next 4 years?
The most important? That has occurred at Raccoon Lake. Now, that may not be the most important, but I think we have a moral obligation. Virtually, some improvements would be made, and that has not been forthcoming. They have played musical chairs with money in the budget. The Lake Association leaders, some of them have quit in disgust because they can't get straight answers out of this council, and I think it's high time that we fulfill that obligation. Tom's right. Route 51 project is essential to Centralia's future. That's not going to be our project. That's going to be the state of Illinois'. And then other projects that are coming at us like a freight train are going to be the continued production of quality water at our water treatment plant and the continued treatment of sewage at the sewage treatment plant. And those are big ticket items that we're going to have to plan for. So hope that answers your question. That's my opinion.
Thank you very much, Dan Stover. Response from Tom Ashby.
Well, this is a wish list because we have lots of issues that we're going to have to make sure we address in the infrastructure. Our water plant, we know it's aging. Barry White does a phenomenal job, not only with the water plant, but also with the sewer plant, to make sure that we stay in compliance. Let me tell you that 4 years ago, we were under mandatory compliance. What did that mean to you? $26 million in bonds you were going to have to pass to the city of Centralia. It was going to take your sewer bill from $6.50 to $36. We were able to get that changed to a voluntary compliance. Why is that important for us? Because we do these projects as an ongoing basis and we're not forced to do that. Do we have a water plant we have to get to? Yes, we're saving the money, putting the money aside to try to replace that water plant eventually. Roads are always important. But you got to remember, when we have a bond project, we spend $186,000, we have less than $100,000 for the whole 155 miles of road we have in Centralia. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom Ashby. And Tom will have the first answer to the next question, and it comes from Rhonda Hatcher with the Shoppers Weekly. Rhonda.
If elected mayor, are you in favor of a community liaison committee to improve relations between the city police and its citizens?
I think that this was an issue that was actually brought up when we had the town meeting on the drugs, about how they thought we're disenchanted from parts of our community. And I think that one thing we found out through the partnership that we had there and the individuals there, we were able to, our next meeting is going to be at the community center. It's going to be at our community center. Herb Williams just came and stepped forward and said, I will host this for you. Do we think it's important to make sure that we have touch with all the individuals in our community? Absolutely. And we think that the police department tries to address that individual, but I still think it comes back. If we have crime or anything else and stuff, it has to be addressed to the youth. And that's one great thing about Herb Williams with the Community Youth Association. He can be able to work with these youth before they become problems in our community. So it's important to note that we're going to continue to do that. Marva Bledsoe with the Youth Commission has also been able to do that. Phenomenal things with this committee that she has. Can't thank her enough for her involvement with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom Ashby. Response now from Dan Stover.
Years ago, one of my last stints on the council, I had proposed just that. I was calling it the need for a human relations commission to deal with the problems that are created by discrimination that are inherent in any diverse community. And I still think that's true. We've all seen the nightmare of Ferguson, Missouri, and we just do not need that in our town. But one of the things on my list that I was going to talk about that I think is related to Ferguson is a new $200 towing fee that they have in Centralia. You get your car towed when you're being arrested for whatever it is. They often will not let you or anybody else drive that car away from the scene. So instead, there's a $200 fee imposed upon you for nothing whatsoever. You pay that fee, you get your receipt, and then you can go and pay the $80 or thereabouts to the towing company. That's how Ferguson got started. Gouging people that way is just not appropriate. And they justify it by saying, well, we're going to buy new license irons for the police cars and stuff like that. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Thank you, Dan Stover. And Dan, you'll have the first answer to this question, which I will pose to you, and I'm going to try and combine a couple of these. They all deal with the fire department and the future of the fire department. Are you in favor of keeping a paid professional department in the city, or would you like to see the city follow some other direction?
Absolutely. I wrote a letter to the editor about 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was, saying that I thought it was hypocrisy to rally around the flagpole following September 11th and then attack the fire department to save a buck. Our emergency responders deserve more respect than that, and I absolutely think they do a better job than a volunteer crew could do. Plus, if we have a volunteer crew, we join a district or we start a new district of our own, They'll be in the hooks, they become an independent unit of government, but still, somebody's got to pay the freight. The quality of service will go down, the response time will go down, lives will be lost because it's important that you get the paddles on the patient in a timely fashion. And I don't think it's worth sacrificing our community or the lives of the people in our community just to save a buck. I very much support the fire department, the police department, and I'm talking about the rank and file cop and all the emergency responders in our community. And I think that this assault on them has been shameful.
Thank you very much, Dan Silver. Tom Ashby has the next answer to the question.
Let's talk about our fire department. As we all know, 4 years ago, we had limited resources available. And we cut measures everywhere. Our water department is half what it used to be. Do we still have aging infrastructure? Yes. Our street department is half what we had before. Police department is still not the number it needs to be. Our fire department continues to grow because of the mandates of the law that was served with us. Do I continue to want to support the best service for the city of Centralia? Absolutely. We continue to, but we can only live within the economic means we have available. If that takes a combination of professional, I consider them all professional, full-time, volunteer, paid professionals, it's something we may have to look at. But I'm telling you that we can only do with what we have. And we can't afford it. We're only in 4 communities in Southern Illinois that has that type of situation. And I think it's important to note that we continue to support the fire department. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom Ashby. And Tom will have the first answer to the next question, and it will be posed by Jason Sylvie with the Centralia Sentinel. Jason.
If elected, will you maintain an open door policy whereby citizens can contact you anytime if they have a concern?
Absolutely. I think that my cell phone's pretty well out there. I think that I get phone calls all the time. I'm not in the office all the time. I try to go by there every day, but make sure that if anybody calls or wants anything, I make sure I get back to it. You know, 4 years ago, I was accused that I would be a part-time. Believe me, this is not a part-time job. And I think that you have more than being a mayor. It's meeting with the people, listening to the people, but more importantly, the city manager's taking a lot of those problems and taking care of it. My job is more to be out in Springfield, Chicago, selling the city of Centralia for the benefits we have. The city manager takes care of the day-to-day operation. Will I have an open door policy? Absolutely. But let's be honest about that. The city manager runs the city, and he does a very great job.
Thank you, Tom Ashby. Dan Stover has the next answer to the question.
Sure, that's easy and short. I'm going to try in town. It's going to get one of these stuck to the door before this election's over. My cell phone number is on it. You've always been able to get a hold of me, and everybody in town knows that I am accessible and approachable. And yeah, that's a no-brainer. Here's cards, if anybody wants them. Beyond that, I wanted to go back with the remaining time that I have to talk about the water plant situation and the sewage treatment plant situation. I spent 2 terms on the city council, and I was sick to death of paying engineering fees for reinventing the wheel. We have a company right here in Centralia, or on the north side of it, part of it's in Centralia, that does this stuff, and they have these systems on the shelf. I think it's shameful that EFI has not been involved in our water and sewer treatment plants before. Let's bring some of that business home.
Thank you, Dan Stover. And Dan, you'll have the first answer to the next question. And Rhonda is going to, lost track of where we were here. Rhonda Hatcher from the Shoppers Weekly will have this question for you.
Do you support the ideal of electing aldermen from wards to ensure diversity on council?
I've gone back and forth on that. The idea behind everybody running at large is that you're not supposed to have parochial interests at stake. You're not supposed to just be looking out for your district. You're supposed to look out for the entire community. The system works to discriminate against minorities. And I think that that's unfortunate. In the entire history of the city of Centralia, minorities have not made it onto the council that often. That's not an issue before us during this election. It might become an issue in the future. Usually it takes some lawyer who's out fee fishing to find some clients who he can represent, and then he can harvest up some fees off of winning that kind of a suit, as happened in Springfield with the Cravens law firm. we need to make sure that whenever you elect people to the city council, that you do keep diversity in mind.
Thank you, Dan Stover. Tom Ashby has the next answer to the question.
Question was what? The diversity?
Do you support the idea of electing aldermen from wards to ensure diversity on council?
Well, this is a difficult question. Like I said, we have, as Danny alluded to, is that the most effective form has been at large. It's one of the reasons why we have Andre Marshall on the board today. He represents a segment of our community that actually reinvested as a community right here. We also have our youth commission, which I said was headed by Marva Bledsoe. The different committees, I can't tell you all the committees and partnerships we've had within our community to make sure that this is brought to the forefront. So what we do with our limitations we have with our council at large, we try to make up in our committees. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths we have as a council, but more importantly, as a community, is the volunteer base we have. Because we all do care about this community, and we all want to give back. And as we said earlier, it's just doing the right thing.
Thank you very much, Tom Ashby. And I'll ask the next question of the candidates. I didn't give you a chance to answer, did I? Yeah. Did I? Okay. I'm kind of myself confused here. I lost track of things. All right. I'll ask the next question of the candidates, and we'll start with Tom Ashby. Tom, the city council right now has put a big emphasis on getting rid of derelict buildings. And obviously there's a lot more derelict buildings than the city has money to pay to tear down. What is the long-term plan, and what needs to happen for the city really to be able to bring this problem under control?
Well, I think it's an ongoing. First and foremost is we're addressing. You know, in my first 4 years as a council member, we took down 2 houses. And we've already done 50 last year. We had 20-some the year before that. One year we didn't have any in 2011. So it's important to note that we continue with this program to try to get rid of these houses. How do we make it? No dumping fees, no fees in order to get rid of a house. We also assist with our personnel actually tearing down the house if they pay for the dumpsters. Very important to note. We continue to work with CDAP and other federal agencies about integrating these houses that we're taking down and putting single-family dwellings there, so we can integrate the neighborhoods back to its original thing. You can't take your community back, and this is the beginning of it. And I think it's important that we do this type of thing, grassroots, and all be part of it.
Thank you, Tom Ashby. Response from Dan Stover.
Yeah, the question is, what do I think about all the demolition of derelict housing that's going on? Some of it's good. By the time I usually discover that it's happened, all I see is the vacant lot, and I didn't have a chance to look at the structure itself before it went down. But what I do know is that the key to making sure that houses don't get in that kind of condition in the first place is jobs, jobs, jobs for this community. People would love to reinvest in their homes and bring them up to speed, but they often just don't have the financial wherewithal, whenever they're unemployed, to do that. Second, I often wonder if maybe we shouldn't follow St. Louis as a model. They have a great rehab program. They do gut rehabs of old structures, and they turn them into very, very nice homes that have some character, that are older, but yet still very, very functional. And I don't believe we've explored that enough. And finally, I have been approached by a group in Centralia that is very interested, and they want to work with me on affordable housing to replace some of the derelict housing that's going in Centralia. And this affordable housing would also include, at the end of it, ownership.
Thank you, Dan Stover. And Dan will have the first answer to the next question, and it will come from the Centralia Sentinel.
What steps would you take to ensure keeping a balanced budget for the city of Centralia?
It's almost as difficult in our trying times as we stand up here talking about how I'm going to guarantee jobs. It's really tough. The state's cutting back on us. Revenues are down, sales tax, jobs are gone. It's very, very difficult to do that. I cannot promise you that we'll have a balanced budget. There are things that I'm not willing to sacrifice. If that means that on occasion we have to go into hock a little bit, I'm willing to do that in order to take care of this community. The balanced budget idea is great. Deficit spending is bad, but I tell you what, a community that doesn't take care of its citizens is even worse.
I think a balanced budget is probably the most important aspect we had when we started. Was this manufactured, manifested? No. We actually had a committee of general people from the public that had expertise in finance. They identified we definitely had a $1.5 million deficit. They definitely said we had problems with our insurance, other factors within our organization and how we pay for things. So a balanced budget is necessary. We can't operate on bankruptcy. Bottom line, we cannot. I think it's important to note that as we continue to do the balanced budget, we have not passing on to the next administration. One thing I'm very happy to say about this council and our administration is we've set a standard of professionalism, and we're not letting the next administration worry about it by putting taxes and the higher rates and everything else onto it. We're taking a standard and say, look, when we left this to you, it was in good shape. It's a professionalism to all the agreements we have, and I think it's important to note we have to continue on this path.
Thank you, Tom Ashby. The next question will come from Rhonda Hatcher of the Shoppers Weekly and will be addressed first to Tom Ashby.
Where do you stand on the development of the homeless shelter here in Centralia?
It's an issue that I think that we all know there is a need. But as a city's viewpoint, we are supporting as a partner for this issue. I think it's important to know we have to take care of the homeless we have in our area. It's part of the aspect of giving back to your community itself. With the present facility we have, I think we have CRC in there. We're working with the board, Mike Young, other members of this board to make sure this is a success. But it has to be done the right way. There has to be proper coding. There has to be proper background checks and everything else when the individual's working with this. And first and foremost, they have to have partners, whether it be CRC, whether it be St. Mary's Hospital, whether it's pantry or something like that, churches, ministerial alliances. That's the only way to be successful. But one thing we found, in order to be successful, to get ventures out there, to do more with less, you have to develop partners within your community. And I think they're doing an excellent job of developing that right now.
Thank you, Tom Ashby. Response from Dan Stover.
I support it without reservation. However, we were approached to put our money where our mouth is on the drug court support group, and we discovered that they do not have their ducks in a row yet. They are not as officially organized as they should be. They didn't have their articles of incorporation in place. They weren't registered with the Secretary of State or the Attorney General or the Department of Revenue. They had a lot of promises. They hoped to do that. They didn't even have clear ownership of the building. But until that happens, I don't think that we want to completely invest in the idea of all that. I went to a hearing of the idea, a community meeting, and there was one vocal opponent who was there. He didn't want it because it was very close to his home. And I don't think that's the criteria we want to invest in. I do think that the Slate is going to have a hard time dealing with him, given that he's given them a $1,000 contribution from the campaign fund.
An answer portion of this evening's program, so we'll now move to our 2-minute closing statement. And Tom Ashby has our first closing statement. Tom?
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you once again for everyone to attending tonight, all those out listening with us tonight. I appreciate the opportunity because this is our only way that we can actually get the issues out in front of you itself. But I want to tell you just very quickly about when I talked about the team that we have and why we're involved with the community itself. It's because we have no financial incentive Anyone seem to pay that you get as a councilman, the amount of time that you serve. There is no personal agenda. That's one of the reasons why we've been able to be successful in the programs we've been able to develop within the city of Centralia. And third and foremost is we do the right thing. Now I'm going back to a point that the third most important thing we have in the city of Centralia is hiring a city manager. How lucky were we to have the city manager, Dan Ramey, come here, who gave up financial incentives in order to come work for the city of Centralia, who took a lower salary of $88,000, who took us out of the financial hole we had, who completed the Wabash project, who was put us in completion where we can get the Calumet Street project done, as well as standard of professionalism that's needed within our community itself. And for anyone to say there was some mishap, illegal activities with the amount of work this man generates, I'm appalled by it. And I stand by our word. He worked every penny we have. We're lucky to have him in our community. And I say to him, the city manager we have now is the most effective one we have. Most important duty. He brought on Grant Hynes, made a public statement, said he's the best city manager the city of Centralia ever had. The man should be in jail. The man should be in jail. And I'm telling you, what is the reason why you're running? I think if you're not going for the good of the people, you have a personal agenda. And I sure hope my opponents is not mad because they didn't get a liquor license. Thank you.
And we now have closing comments from Dan Stover.
Told you I had a long list. Let's try to finish it. I'm tired of people getting their tickets fixed in Centralia, not by any police officer, but by this administration. The friends and family discount at the police department should be ended immediately. They have assaulted the integrity of the police department. Only, even if it's not the best price. I do not think we need a new city hall in this community. The old city hall needs fixed up. It needs rehabilitated. That's a white elephant. It is inaccessible. There's going to be thousands spent on renovating that building. There's going to be thousands spent on operating that building. And I do think that if we're going to use that building, it should be built for something other than a throne room for the mayor. If we were building a business incubator to bring jobs to Centralia, I'd be all for it. If we were building some kind of civic center, like Marion and Carbondale have, I'd be all for it, but no throne room. I've done the best that I could in this community to aggressively attack the problem of drugs in our community. The best thing that's come down the pike in a long time has been the drug court. Chris Marler sits out there as just one of the best people in the Centralia area. I think she serves on it with me, having lost 2 people to drugs in her family. And I think that we need aggressive enforcement of both heroin and methamphetamine. But I think it's also kind of embarrassing that we haven't done anything proactive about drugs in Centralia, and we've had to bring in all these outside agencies to engage in enforcement instead. We need to bolster the police department and give them the tools to do a better job. And lastly, I don't think that the character assassination that's gone on for the past 4 years of Becky Alt and Grant Hynes is called for. The council voted, and Tom was on it, for everything that Grant Hynes has been accused of doing. So I called him and I asked him, what do you got to offer me? He said they voted for everything they complain about. It's all a matter of public record. Grant Hynes is one of the best and most moral men I've ever known. And looking for a scapegoat to blame all of your problems on does not rise to the level of addressing your challenges yourself. Somebody just yelled out of the back, you're an angry man. I'm a really pretty happy guy. I'm pretty upbeat. I do the best I can, but I tell you what, I love Centralia, and I'll work my tail off for it and for you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dan Stover. Let's give both of our candidates for mayor a big hand tonight. Tom Ashby and Dan Stover will meet up on the ballot next Tuesday, and we encourage everybody to go out and vote. Polls open at 6 a.m., close at 7 p.m. We want to thank everybody for being part of the forum tonight in attendance. It's always good to have citizen involvement. And thank you again for being in attendance, and thank our candidates as well for taking part in tonight's event on behalf of the Centralia Chamber of Commerce. Have a very pleasant good evening.